The year is 497 BC. A carriage is leaving the small state of Lu, carrying a 56-year-old man who has just realized that his entire career is finished. He is the most learned scholar of his age, and no ruler in China will give him the position he believes he was born for. So he is going to spend the next 13 years walking from kingdom to kingdom, trying again. He will fail every time. What he discovers about that failure is the thing every exhausted person eventually needs to hear. His name is Confucius. The world will later call him Confucius. He had served briefly in Lu as Minister of Crime. He had pushed for reforms. He had challenged the powerful families that ran the state behind the Duke's back. For a time, it had even seemed to be working. The markets grew honest. The roads grew safer. The Duke, for the first time in years, was attending court. Then a neighboring kingdom, watching this with quiet alarm, sent 80 dancing women and 120 fine horses as a gift. The Duke received them in private. He did not come to court the next morning, or the morning after that. Confucius waited at the gate for 3 days. Then he understood. He packed his books and left. He went first away, where the Duke received him warmly, and then asked him a question about military formations. Confucius answered that he knew the rituals of the sacrificial vessels, but not the arrangement of armies. He left the next day. He went to Song, where a powerful minister, threatened by his teachings, tried to have him killed. He fled at night. His students were terrified. He told them to walk steadily and not look back. "Heaven gave me this virtue," he said. "What can one man do to me?" He went to Chen, then to Cai, back to Wei, to places his students could barely name afterward, places where the rulers admired him in theory and refused him in practice, where they invited him to dinner and then quietly avoided his counsel, where they asked him profound questions and then ignored his answers. On a back road through Chu, 2 old men were plowing a field together. Confucius sent his student Zilu to ask directions across the river. The old men knew exactly whose master he was. Everyone on the roads of that era knew the wandering scholar with his small band of students. They laughed when Zilu asked. "The whole world is a flood," one of them said. "Who do you think is going to change it? Better to flee from people entirely and live among the wild." Zilu came back and told him what they said. Confucius was quiet for a long moment, looking at the river. Then he said one sentence that would echo through 25 centuries. "If I am not to walk among men, then with whom shall I walk?" He kept going, but the question stayed with him. He could feel it sitting beside him in the carriage. The recluses were not stupid men. They were learned. They had looked at the same broken world he was looking at and decided it could not be saved. And here he was, well past 50, walking toward another kingdom that would not hire him. In Kuang, a local mob mistook him for a wanted criminal who had once raided the area. They surrounded his carriage for 5 days. His students grew quiet. Some of them began to wonder, in low voices when he could not hear, whether the recluses had been right after all. Between Chen and Cai, the worst of it. Their supplies ran out. For 7 days, they ate nothing. Some of his students grew so weak they could not stand. Zilu, hungry and furious, finally came to him. His robe was torn. His face was hollow. "Does the Junzi also fall into such distress?" he asked. Junzi, the noble person. The one Confucius had spent his life trying to teach his students to become. The question was not really about food. The question was, "Have you been wrong this whole time?" Confucius looked at his student for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "The Junzi falls into distress and remains himself. The small man falls into distress and loses himself." There is a line at the very beginning of the Analects that names what just happened. Confucius asked his students a question that he knew they would not understand for years. "Is it not the mark of a Junzi to remain unbothered when others do not know him?" The phrase he used was buyun, not resentful, not bothered. Most people read this as stoic endurance, as if it means grit your teeth and accept that nobody sees you. But that is not what he meant. If you measure your life by recognition, you have handed control of your life to other people. If you measure it by the work itself, the work becomes free. Buyun is not endurance. It is the freedom that arrives when you stop needing to be seen. Kong Chu kept walking. Years passed. Someone, somewhere along the road, described him to his students as looking as forlorn as a homeless dog. When they told him, he laughed for a long time. As for the appearance, that is only an opinion. But as for being like a homeless dog, yes, that is true. That is true. He returned to Lu at 68. No appointment waited for him. The Duke did not want him. The powerful families did not want him. 13 years of walking had produced nothing he could point to. He had applied his philosophy correctly. He had lived every virtue he taught, and he had failed at the only thing he had set out to do. So he went home. He began editing the old texts. He sat in a small room and taught. One student arrived, then another, then another. He could hear them in the mornings now, before he opened his eyes. Voices in the courtyard, reciting the lines he had given them. He had asked once, on a road in Chu, "With whom shall I walk?" He had not yet seen the answer. He died in 479 BC, age 72, believing himself a failure. 25 centuries later, his words are recited by children in 100 countries. The thing he was for was not the thing he was chasing. If you have been trying for a long time, and nothing has come of it, ask this: what if the result you have been measuring is not the thing your life is actually producing? Confucius walked 13 years for an empire that would not hire him. He did not know he was walking for us. What is the thing you have been measuring as a failure? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. Thank you for being here. Somewhere in a small room in the state of Lu, an old man sat listening to his students recite. He did not know it yet, but he had found his life's work in the place where his career had ended.